So we're going to go through quite a lot of information today. I want you to feel free to ask questions. I want there to be interaction. That's a big deal for me. And so I've named this the root cause landscapes. Stop guessing and start understanding, because I think this is one of the first steps that I really believe that everyone should go through when it comes to natural health. I want to honor you for being here too, because it's not always the easiest thing to get on a webinar live. So thank you for being with me. If you're not on it live, then next time you're going to need to come on live so that we can have the interaction that I think is so important. If you've been frustrated with being exhausted and tired of doctors telling you that your labs look normal and you know that they're everything but normal because you don't feel normal, that's a big deal to me. So we're going to figure out what we can do to help you out. I am a board certified doctor of natural medicine. I am not a medical doctor. This workshop is for information and educational purposes only, not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Always consult your physician if you're seeing one before starting any new protocol. That is a big deal. They know things that I don't know if you're on meds, things like that. I want you to be honest with me for a little bit. Have you been called normal on lab tests and you know that you're not normal? Put it in the chat. I was called normal many times, and I was anything but normal when it came to more advanced labs. All right, so we're not having huge, yep, all at once. Okay, you're in the right place. And I think a lot of times we see with my clients that they can sleep for 8 hours and you're exhausted when the alarm goes off in the morning, and you've gotten a full amount of hours of sleep and you're not feeling good. And you keep feeling like, what is wrong with me? Where did the old me go? And I don't want that to happen anymore. Being normal is a lie. When it comes to lab tests, that is not where we want to be, is normal if we're not feeling well. We want to be able to identify what's giving you those issues. So fatigue doesn't happen for no reason. Emotional swings that are messing with your head are not coming from a place of health. There's something going on. And I've been there. I know what it feels like. I am one of those people that I actually, before I started working in this aspect of natural health as a practitioner, I went to a doctor's appointment after my dad had passed away 12 years ago. And I was all messed up with hormones. I could feel my emotions going all over the place. And the doctor's like, oh, that's normal. It's your age. And I'm like, that's not normal. Because it was 12 years ago. I didn't go into menopause until 5 years ago. So the fact that they thought it was normal, and all they gave as an option was drugs, and depression meds were the first thing. And I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm just feeling off all the time. And so that is something that seems to be normal with medical doctors. Not saying all medical doctors, and I think there is a huge shift that is taking place, but I want to see health for my clients. And the truth is, we can think that maybe there's something wrong with me because you've been told those lies for so long that it's in your head, it's your fault, and your body is broken. And that's not the truth. This is the farthest thing from the truth. The problem isn't you, it's the established medicine that has been perpetrated for many years that doesn't know how to find disease. They only know with typical standard labs how to diagnose. And that's what a lab test is for doctors. They diagnose. I don't do any of that diagnosing. I look for those imbalances so that we can see what's going on that is causing your body to have compensation mechanisms. So we're not going to guess anymore. We're going to actually go with some real verifiable truth. And if you are unfamiliar with me, some of you know me and some of you don't, but I have been in natural health since 2009. Like I said, I'm a certified doctor of natural medicine. I studied naturopathy and I use a lot of different modalities. I created this workshop because I'm really tired of having women that are incredible. They have passion to do things in their life and they're stuck. And they really want to be moving forward. So my simple approach is guided by faith, grounded in wellness. And I believe God designed your body to heal. And what we need to do is get the blocks out of the way. And then it gives the body opportunity to do that. So we need to remove those blocks. So we're going to unearth what's draining your body. And this is the framework that I use when I take women through surviving to thriving. And I've had many clients that I've worked with that feel that change within a month. And it's not guaranteed, but we really do have some changes that take place in that amount of time. Most people try and fix fatigue with adding things like caffeine, sugar, random supplements, and they're looking for a pill for an ill in a natural form a lot of times, and it's still not working. And I think that's because we need to look at what's blocking the energy flow. So we're going to look to see what is in our way and be able to support that. We've got hidden stressors and things that we need to do to make sure that you're effectively getting nutrition. And instead of guessing, we're going to understand what's been blocking your energy and what your body needs first, because we'll see that with numbers. So I want you to meet Abigail. Abigail is a sweet, sweet gal that I started with a few years ago. And when Abigail first came to me, she had just gotten married. This should have been the best time of her life, and instead she crashed. She said, I'm completely exhausted all the time. Getting dressed, showering, or walking even short distances felt overwhelming. I spent most days in bed, wondered if this is just how life was going to be. Instead of enjoying being a newlywed, she was in deep brain fog, anxiety, deep emotional struggles and lows, and she was doing everything right, but her body was crashing. And she felt like she was doing everything right. There were some habits that we created that turned out to be a much better way to go. She went from being a vibrant music major until almost being bedridden in her early 20s. She had gained 30 pounds in just a couple of months, felt severe bloating. She was dealing with anxiety, paranoia, brain fog. She really dreamt of being a professional performer, and there was just her body was like, no, you can't even get out of bed. And she said sometimes all she could do was get out of bed, take a shower, and then go back to bed. That was it. She just had no energy for anything else. And what we discovered is that she had a few infections and toxins in the way. Once we started working at getting those out of the way, things were changing in her body, and she actually was able to have a normal cycle, which she had never had her entire life. And she now has a 1-year-old little boy, and it's been amazing to go from survival to stewardship is the way that she voiced it. And I think that frustration that she had for many years, it was a struggle. Now, I'll be honest, she just contacted me recently, and postpartum, she has been having some other issues. And with using the root cause landscape, we've been able to identify new infections that her body has gotten, and we're going to be working on that. But I loved how she had done so well, and we saw such improvement that she was able to conceive and never thought she'd be able to. She'd been told by doctors that she'd never be able to. So she has a little guy, and I think that's pretty awesome. You may be thinking that this is a different story than it is for you, but it's not your fault. A lot of it is what we're encountering in the days that we have. Abigail wasn't broken. You're not broken. She was blocked, and once we got the blocks out of the way, we saw some amazing results. So I like the energy restoration pathway, because really that pathway is very important, and it always starts with hydration. Yes, this is why I have the picture of water, even though I'm talking about a lab test, because you can start right now to get healthier. So I'm going to say and I'm going to ask you guys in the chat, if you'll indulge me for a moment, if you could put in there how much water, or if you know that you are drinking enough water for your body, because you're getting at least half of your body's weight in ounces of water for the day. So let's see, we only have a few people on the call, but let me see if you take your weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, then 75 ounces is your minimum amount of water for the day. Especially if you live in a hot area like I do, you got to have more. So come on, kick it in. Are you drinking enough water? Usually more than half. Good. Oh, kind of short. Okay. And is that a good point for you, Ellie, to be at 80 ounces? Because I don't know how much you weigh. Yeah, that should be good. I know you're busy with your job, but yeah, I think that's probably a good point when it comes to how much you're bringing in. So that's great. That is so important. And I actually spent the day on a conference. It's actually a conference that I typically go to in person, but I decided to not do that this year, and I've been attending virtually. And one of the things that they started from the very beginning is using distilled water as your source of water. And there's all kinds of stuff I could go into with that. There's some videos on my YouTube channel, Dr. Carrie Barron, that go into water intake. But that water and hydration and having pure water distilled is vitally important. They brought that up again today at the conference right off the bat. The amount of radioactive elements that are in our drinking water, along with all of the pesticides, chemicals, all of that kind of stuff. Distilled is the only way you're getting H2O. And when you do that, there's a lot that happens with detox. So that's plan number one. We're going to start you off on getting enough water so that your body can function properly. And then we can go on to the other. And part of getting a blood test is making sure that you have enough water so that they can do the blood draw. Otherwise, your veins get all collapsed and the phlebotomist has a hard time. So water, always number one. So we're going to go into the root cause landscape now, and the official name that the lab company calls it is Metabolic Vulnerability Index, MVX for short. And I don't think that speaks to my heart, so that's why I changed the name and put it as the root cause landscape, because it gives you a wide overview of what's going on. And it may sound technical and distant to use the Metabolic Vulnerability Index, but it's a fascinating tale as far as how this whole thing came about. The National Institute of Health was asking a lab company, LabCorp, to create a lab test that would be good for telling people longevity markers. So they took 30 years worth of information, almost 30,000 participants, 29,825, about 30 blood markers, threw it all into a computer and evaluation, and they came up with 6 blood markers that are the key points of the lab test. And as you look at these markers, and it's funny because you could have a doctor order this lab for you, but a doctor will have no clue what to do with the results, because no medication ever fixes any of these. Not one piece of information. It fixes any of these markers. Working with your body to naturally remove the barriers as well as get in the good nutrition is a fascinating key to me. I never used lab tests because so much of it was diagnostic before this. This is a game changer for me. And the fact that they use so much information blew me away. And then I found this from one of the pieces of information online about this lab test. And it's a quote from someone who created the study. When researchers built the MVX, they didn't just throw out traditional risk factors. They actually tested MVX against 15 of them. So these 15 markers have been what doctors use for markers of longevity for decades. This is fascinating to me. Age, sex, ethnicity, smoking, body mass index, total cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, triglycerides, all that fat stuff that we hear about, diabetes, hypertension, this is where it gets serious, history of coronary artery disease, previous myocardial infarction, previous heart failure, family history of coronary artery disease, and renal function. The MVX was a stronger predictor of longevity than any of those 15 markers. If that's not fascinating, I think that is just amazing that this test is a better indicator than all of those other things that doctors think are the biggest indicators. And they don't use it because they can't prescribe something to fix any of it, and a diagnosis of a disease is not available with these blood markers. So, do you guys think that's fascinating? I think that's fascinating. Okay, nobody's talking tonight. It's okay. So our first marker is the hidden infections, and I kind of think of these as silent thieves. I want you to think of your energy as a cell phone battery. And you might not feel sick with a fever, but low-grade infections like Epstein-Barr, Lyme, or mold are like apps running in the background. maybe dental infections that aren't easily identified by untrained doctors or dentists. A lot of infections can take place within the jaw if there has been a tooth removed and they did not do it correctly. Infection gets encapsulated in there. I have actually one of my practitioner's friends just went through a major cavitation surgery, and she said that there was hardly anything holding her jaw together. It was mostly pus in there. And this is a way to identify, hey, if there's an infection, let's see where we can find it, is by getting the infection markers. And infection markers can expose within this marker, specifically the GlycaA. It can be hidden infections that you're not really paying attention to. They can be acute or chronic, which means sometimes there's a low grade kind of thing, low grade coming along, ongoing, or acute means this is emergency, diarrhea and vomiting. That's where an acute one is. Chronic is the ones that sit there forever and we don't always see them or know about them. So those hidden infections can even be parasites. They can be bacteria, all kinds of things. And so 20% of your battery, if you've got infections, is already drained before you even start your day. That's why that exhaustion can take place. And this is an indicator with one of the other markers for inflammation. Our ideal marker for the GlycaA score on the root cause landscape is 300. That's below that number, key. So if you're at 300 or below, sweet spot, you're doing a great job. When it's elevated, it could be low-grade bacterial infection, fungal, viral, or parasitic activity. There is a lot of noise about tick-borne infections lately, and ticks, a lot of people think that it's just bacterial. Lyme is a bacterial infection, and it's not. They are morphic, so they actually change form. And so something that is a tick-borne illness is not necessarily bacterial. But the infections can be bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic, Lyme, or other tick-borne diseases. I just became aware of a new one. I'm learning all the time. But alpha-gal is one that causes people to not be able to digest proteins, and it causes nausea, bloating, an aversion to animal protein, and it can really damage the liver. So that's even a new one that I'm aware of and found out through getting this root cause landscape test done, that I have a client that has that situation. So what if your score is above 300? Well, then I look at a few different tests. Sometimes we want to look at allergy tests. Are you allergic to something that you're ingesting on a regular basis? I really like the tick-borne complete for people if that's even a possibility. And I think anymore, I'm almost to the point of saying everyone needs to do the tick-borne complete. It's not an inexpensive test, but it is very comprehensive and it does a great job. The other one would be a test that I would do as a next step if we don't know specifically, like, hey, I know I've got an Epstein-Barr issue, or I know that there is a bacterial or a fungal infection. But the gut zoomer from Vibrant Labs is really good at looking at your microbiome and seeing what kinds of infections are there, how is your good bacteria, and there's ways that we can adjust for that. The other thing that is part of this GlycaA score is emotional stressors, emotional and spiritual stressors. So if you are seeing like high levels of that and we do these tests, then we've got some emotional and spiritual work to do more than likely. But we can get that calmed down. So this is one of my clients that did their score and had a very high GlycaA. That is extremely high. For them to bold it like it is in this report, that's really high, especially when you're looking at 300 is a good score. But their overall score was 49, which isn't horrible, but that was a really high marker. And so doing advanced testing is where we would go with that to make sure that we're getting all of those types of infections. So any questions on the GlycaA and the infection marker? All right, not getting any answers. None here? Okay, cool. So pillar number 2 is toxin load. These are the biological brakes. So environmental toxins, heavy metals, household products, When your detox pathways are clogged, your energy stalls. And many people think, oh, I eat organic, I'm fine. But toxins just aren't in food. And a lot of things are actually labeled organic that aren't. There are toxins in our food, it's in our environment, in our self-care products, lotions, hair conditioner, makeup, and in dental work. One of the highest issues I find is for those that have had mercury or silver fillings in their mouth, whatever you want to call them, they're mercury. That is one of the biggest problems. And this bucket is just to visualize where you have that excess of toxins, your body can't handle it and it is overflowing. So I'm going to give you a little hope here. Hailey is a great example of a person who had been doing everything right. She knew a lot about natural health. Yes, Kristen, there are fillings that are safer, but I'm going to go into a little bit of that right now, but that's a great question. So Hailey had been working in natural health for a long time, knew that her diet was great, her exercise programs were great. She had brain fog all the time. She was tired much more than she should be, and she knew. And what we did is we dug a little bit deeper and found heavy metal issues. And she had an amalgam filling that had been in her mouth for over 10 years. And she kept thinking that's probably what the problem is. And she didn't really know how to go about getting it taken out. So there's a whole protocol that I go through with clients that do have silver fillings. It's very easy and it puts a lot of control in your hands. I am not the one that is taking care of you. You are taking care of you. So she had some specific pre-removal protocols that we did and post-protocol removals. So she did foot baths at home, and these are easy ones that are not with an electronic device. It actually is something you can do at home with a cooler, and worked through doing the foot baths and got the amalgams taken out with some other supplements during the time of just before that kind of surgery, because it's almost a surgery for a lot of people. And it was just crazy how much better. She said over the time where she started doing the foot baths before the amalgam removal, she saw some really good results. And then afterwards, she did a few more foot baths and she's like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I can think clearly, I have more energy, and I'm doing a lot. And all of the little mystery symptoms that she was wondering what was going on, they vanished. And that interference was gone, because mercury messes with the electrical flow in your body. It also is a gatekeeper to other metals. So having mercury fillings in your mouth is not a good situation. We need to have those out. If you have not done a detox with having mercury amalgams removed, you need to do that. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. That has to take place, because with mercury in your body, you cannot have full health. And there's a lot of reasons with that. But Hailey did so well that she had kind of paused on getting pregnant until she got the silver filling out, which I was very proud of her to do that, because we want to make sure mercury's not in the picture and then being absorbed by the placenta so that the babies are getting that. And your first kid's going to get the most. So I thought that was really fantastic for her to think through that. And she has probably a 1.5-year-old now, little girl. And she was so glad that she didn't have to endanger her by getting that mercury out of her body beforehand. So the toxin load comes up in the small HDL particle number. And Kristen, I know that you're in New York. These lab tests aren't available for you in New York. So you would have to go to another state that's nearby. New York, New Jersey, and Rhode Island do not allow me to order tests for you for this. But if you have somebody that's in Pennsylvania, you can use that as your home address and go over there and get the blood draw done in Pennsylvania or something like that. But I looked online to see if I could do this small HDL particle number as an individual marker to kind of recreate the MVX without all of the calculations. And it's not even available. It is only available on this test. And think about, I put a little boat here as far as the illustration of the idea, because I think of the small HDL particle number. So you have heard of HDL and LDL, and that's the cholesterol levels in your body. And the number reveals some fascinating things. So we want to have over 19. And small HDL particle numbers are kind of the cleanup crews of your body, and they're like little boats carrying toxins out. So fat encapsulates toxins, And you need those small HDL particles to encapsulate the toxins to transport them out of the body. If you have a high toxin load, you don't have enough boats to get everything out. So that's the easiest way for me to illustrate it. We want it to be over 19. And the higher isn't, high isn't a big deal. It's not like it goes lab high and you're in trouble. It's just we're seeing that there's extra toxins in the body when this is taking place. So what happens if you have a high toxin burden? Well, some of the lab tests that I would do next is the total tox burden. And that alone has so many toxins that comes up on it. And it will be really key in environmental toxins. That could be mold, it could be stuff on the outside, it could be things that are coming in your food or your self-care products. It can also be heavy metals. That's the other one. And I thought this was fascinating because I did my own root cause landscape test. And what I found on there was that small HDL particle number was lower than I would like it to be. And so I thought, all right, I'm going to do the total tox burden. And I discovered with that there were 2 toxins in my body I'd never really heard of before in anybody else talking about labs. And they were cesium and thallium. Funny thing is, and this is a great thing about the total tox burden test, Vibrant puts together explanations of where those toxins come from as well as what can help take them out. So it's not just here are numbers, it actually goes into the details for you. So it's a really good test for a consumer to have and refer back to later on. But what I found out with cesium and thallium is that they are removed using potassium. Why is that important? Potassium is a key element that is needed for adrenal function. And who has had adrenal issues for a long time? Me. So knowing that my body was using that potassium to try and get the cesium and thallium out, I'll say it in the right order, no wonder I was having adrenal issues. And I've been supporting my body with more potassium as well as other minerals and vitamin C, which is really important for the adrenals. So I do a little cocktail in the morning right when I get up where I've got a 1/4 teaspoon potassium, 1/2 teaspoon of Redmond real salt, and then I do typically lemon juice, but our lemon trees are done producing, so I've been using cranberry and doing a little cranberry juice and then filling the rest of a 12-ounce cup up with distilled water. So that has been what I've done to get more potassium in my body to help with my adrenals, as well as to let my body take care of that problem with getting the cesium and thallium out. So what do we do when we see a number like this? Number one, we want to get that lab test done so we know what we're dealing with. I had no clue. And I've had a number of clients that had no clue what their toxin load was. And we discovered, and a lot of it is reducing exposure. So things like alcohol, processed foods, household chemicals, a lot of people don't think about those. And it may be something that's really important. And then we are also going to support detoxification with hydration, fiber, castor oil packs, gentle movement, and doing protocols depending on what your needs are to work through those. So think about it this way. If your cleanup crews are exhausted, toxins build up faster and they can't be hauled away easily. So we want to know what the toxins are so we can get them out. This toxin example, small HDL particle number was 11.2. And notice their overall score was 54. So having that many toxins in the body, there is something we need to pay attention to. And I didn't bring this up earlier with the GlycaA, but sugar and alcohol intake can affect both the GlycaA and the small HDL particle number. I've had a few people that were drinking alcohol on a regular basis or just eating whatever they wanted, and we were able to control that a bit by removing those 2 challenges. Any questions on this one while I get a sip of water? Questions, comments, snide remarks on the small HDL particle number?
I have high mercury in my system because I do have many cavities filled with mercury since I was like a little child.
Okay.
I don't have my page in front of me, but I know that I do because I always have a problem with that.
Yeah.
So I know and my toxin load is high.
Yeah. And mercury toxin is one of the nastiest ones. I don't know if you've seen the YouTube video that I did on mercury toxin, but I hope it will move you to moving
Okay.
forward and getting them out, but do not go get them out right away. We
Okay.
need to reduce your toxin load. Anybody else that's interested in learning about this, mercury can be very dangerous when you start to disrupt it. So our body hides toxins. Mercury within 31 hours of ingesting it, usually it's through inhalation, but when you have silver fillings and you get it all the time,
Right.
within 31 hours, it will circulate and find its own little hiding place.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure it
well,
does.
but when you get it out of those hiding places, you
Yeah.
have to go very slowly because it
Okay.
will cover the oxygen receptor site. So let's pretend this is a red blood cell. So a red
Okay.
blood cell, think about it like a lifesaver that's got the middle filled in, but it's still
Right.
indented and round. There are four oxygen receptor sites of red blood cells. And your body can handle up to 3 5/8 to 3 7/8, somewhere in
Mm-hmm.
that range, being covered. If you cover up that last eighth, you're dead. You're going to pass out. I
Okay.
did a detox I used the same materials with the foot bath as I had done earlier, but it was a very, very fast detox. And what happened to me, it was a bath that I was doing instead of a
Mm,
foot bath. I started
okay.
feeling nauseous in the foot bath while I was sitting in the bath, and I'm like, I'm stopping this right now. So I got
Right.
out and showered off everything and then went and laid down. I was exhausted. And when I laid
Yeah.
down, I passed out. I have a friend who
Uh,
did that same bath protocol because I actually learned about it from her husband. She passed out naked and wet on the floor.
oh my
So
God.
this is why we go very slowly and in a very controlled environment with that foot bath. And we
Right.
want to reduce that load as much as possible prior to detox because when they are taking prior to the amalgam removal, because when they're taking those out, there will be dust that will be coming out.
Right.
And they may do all of the great things with vacuum and all of that kind of thing, but there are still things. So we want to lower that load to 60 ounces or less. A human body, it's fascinating, men can hold up to about 87 to 90 ounces of mercury.
Mm-hmm.
Women, I actually had a client that had 95 ounces of mercury in her body.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm.
So this is not something to do on your own. This is something you need to do with a practitioner. It is a very serious
So
situation when it comes to
I would
mercury.
also tell you that I also do have the MTHFR, and I have both of the ones that are the problem. So
Well,
I don't detox well.
the foot bath thing is actually really good because it's more of a magnet pulling the toxins through your feet.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's a different dynamic. And having that gene is not a sentence that you can't detox well. We just have to do it in a different way and we have to go really slowly.
Okay.
Opening up those elimination pathways is very important.
Okay.
But depending on where you are with mercury load, we may even start somebody on the foot bath right away when we're trying to open up elimination pathways, just so there isn't that threat of having that situation where you could pass out when you have too much covered on those oxygen sites.
Right.
Yeah.
I did in the last year I did a bunch of foot baths.
They're not the same as what I use
Okay.
as the protocol. Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
electric foot baths are great. They're very effective to a certain degree, but this is a
Okay.
very different way to do it.
Okay.
And it puts it in your hands. You're not paying somebody to go stick your feet in their water.
Okay. You said that your YouTube has that on there, right?
It has the mercury information. It
Okay.
does not have the
Okay.
foot bath protocol because that
Okay.
really needs to be walked through with me.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you for letting me know, and that's good
Yes.
to know. That's a
Okay.
huge challenge that definitely needs to be addressed. Cool. All right. So now we're going to go on to pillar number 3, mitochondrial function. And I just had someone text me today saying, "Does my program help with mitochondrial function?" It's all about mitochondrial function. That is one of the key factors with health. And what I have found is that if our little power plants of the cells are not working well, We can have two numbers that can be on either side with this function. And it's not just like having energy for the day that can be changed when you do some supplements. It doesn't work that way. It's actually the cells producing enough energy, and there's so many mitochondria in every cell. And when the body is sensing danger, like toxins, infections, those kind of things, mitochondrial production of energy shuts down quite a bit. So we need to look at this in a number of different ways and kind of work on it synergistically. There needs to be that emotional support. And that's why I'm very holistic in the way I take care of things. Kristen has experienced this personally. With everybody, I am working on emotions as well. Everybody. You are not going to work with me if you're not going to work on emotions. And we can use Bach flowers, we can use somatic exercises, we can use homeopathics, but that cell danger response can cause mitochondrial function to be off as well. So that's the signal that we need. We need to feel safe before our body can detox. And that is why mitochondrial function is so important. So that is the citrate score. And there's actually a sweet spot of 1.5 to 1.9. You can be a little, like almost to 2, but 2 is not good. We want to be in that sweet spot. And I don't know if you guys have ever paid attention to your cars when you're driving. My first car was a stick shift, and I look at citrate scores being high and low, and I honestly don't know which end it is when it's high or low. So what happens with that mitochondrial function, and when that is off, it affects the Krebs cycle. And that efficiency of your cells is within the Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle is this whole thing that they discovered as far as glucose and then pyruvate and all of these kinds of things to keep the energy going. When you're too high, you've got sluggish mitochondrial and detox is stagnant. When you're too low, you've got sluggish mitochondria. Too high and we're in overdrive. So I think about it as being in the wrong gear when you're driving. And I think that's an easy way for people to remember. So if you're driving and you start off the line in first gear, that's the right gear. You're going to keep going at that until your revving is high enough, the revolutions are high enough that we need to move up to the next gear. If you aren't moving up to that next gear, you're burning out your car engine by revving it too high for too long. That's kind of that too high production where the number is too high. It is where I think about it. I'm not exactly sure which end it is. So on the low end, it's like you're at the stop line and the light changes and you're in third gear. It may work to get going, but it's really slow and it is not geared for your body to work that way. So you're not having enough energy to actually get off the line. And so I kind of look at that as a car engine and the way that works. You don't want to be revving too fast and you don't want to be in the wrong gear so that you're, trying to push really hard with less revolutions. So next steps when it comes to having the mitochondrial function off. Mitochondrial function and nutrition are the easiest markers to change. So sometimes a specific supplement will be what we need. Easy peasy. Other times there are some lifestyle choices that need to be made. If we need to look to find out what's going on with that, organic acids is the test that we would do. And it's a deeper insight into the microbial imbalances of your body. If you have too many good bacteria, not enough bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria, that can slow up your digestive tract and cause those energy productions to be slow. Supporting mitochondria can be a mineral thing. Sometimes it's a glucose thing, and hydration is always playing a part in the mitochondrial function. So citrate, that little spark plug for your engine, that needs to be between 1.5 and 1.9. All right, so mitochondrial function example here. So we have someone here that's got citrate and valine high. So remember, when those markers are bolded, that's really high. Our citrate score, we want it to be at between that 1.5 and 1.9. We're at 338. So that engine is running high all the time. And it's affected probably the valine score, which is really high as well. I'll go over into the nutrition markers shortly, but that mitochondria is burning really high. What we will find too with mitochondria scores is as we go through detox, that citrate number will fluctuate because you're using more energy to detox the body, whether it's infection or toxins. And I think honestly, toxins are kind of the first step, and infection comes right after that. And we can work on that once elimination pathways are open. That's a big deal for me. We want to do things in order. So any questions on the mitochondrial function? Oh, and the mercury will screw up mitochondrial function too. Heavy metals will. No questions? All right. I'm going on to nutrition and the absorption of the nutrition. So think about it this way. People have heard forever, you are what you eat. It's not true. You are what you absorb. And the healthiest diet in the world, if you don't have the enzymes to break them down, or you're stressed, often the body is not going to digest well. Is the gallbladder sluggish? Are there parasites or leaky gut that are involved? And is there just nutrition not getting to the cells because, your body is not digesting and absorbing? So Teresa is my healthy example with this one. I love Teresa. She was one of the sweetest ladies I've ever worked with, and she was fun to meet with. So many awesome things about her. But she had her gallbladder removed years ago, and she was miserable from the day that she was done with that. She thought that it was supposed to fix everything to get the gallbladder out, and she was a foodie, and food became her enemy. She told me, I can't eat freely without severe pain, and I have to stick close to home because I don't know how I'm going to feel. And she was, scared of her lunch. That's not a good thing. And we worked on opening up those elimination pathways and detoxification and figured out the right amount of enzymes for her body to signal that missing gallbladder situation, to signal the liver to produce the bile when she needed it for eating. She was very sensitive. I work with a lot of sensitive clients that their bodies, we may move forward and think we're going to be doing good, and they might get hit pretty hard. That, wow, my body's not detoxing. The whole genetic situation, Karen, like you had mentioned, can be part of that. But we were able to adjust the dosing, go really light on the doses for helping clean up her system. And her digestion really blossomed after that. She felt amazing. She's loving eating and enjoying it. And she said, I am nutrition focused now. Not just avoiding pain. I am nutrition focused. I'm not scared of food anymore that won't stick with me. My goal is to live to 120 and be healthy. That to me is freedom, and that is taking control of your health. So that is a really big deal for me when it comes to success, having Teresa be able to identify with that. So our nutrition markers are a little different. They have different scores for each of these markers. So valine, you want it to be at 200. Leucine is 110, and isoleucine is 55. And when you see high markers or low markers, there are some different indicators. So valine is for energy and muscle endurance. So that's really important because it helps repair muscle, stamina, and brain function. When it's elevated, mitochondrial stress or incomplete amino acid metabolism. So if we've got more circulating than the body's using, your score is going to be over 200. If it's low, it may be intake or it may be digestion isn't complete. So toxin load is something that we might want to look at if the valine is really high, and that could be blocking that metabolism. And valine, kind of the short end of it is it helps your body convert fuel into usable strength. So it's the connection between the actual fuel going into the body and then the body using that energy. All right, leucine is for protein synthesis and blood sugar balance. So this ideal is 110. So it supports tissue repair, blood sugar balance, and insulin response. So I think one of the markers through that new weight loss program that I've been doing is working on that leucine. And I had some low leucine scores. And so this I'm excited to see with the doing the weight loss program, how that changes, because I think that endocrine system is really important so that we're actually supporting all of it, not just dropping pounds, but making sure the body is operating well. And when it's elevated, you've got poor insulin sensitivity. Sometimes within this program, it's going to take a bit longer for someone to lose any weight because they're extremely insulin sensitive. And that means basically that you need to eat more frequently, typically. It can be a metabolic aging marker, and support for this is, there are some insulin response things like cinnamon, chromium, and berberine. I always look at those as band-aids. Let's figure out what's going on. Why are all of the markers off? And making sure that protein intake is balanced is important. I recommend women are on 90 grams of protein a day. And I like meat protein. I think that's one of the best sources of it. If someone wants to be completely vegetarian or vegan with me, that's going to be a real hard thing to do. But leucine is your body builder. If you're eating protein, you are able to build the muscles. And when it's off, your fuel and your repair are just off. So isoleucine, blood sugar control and immune energy. And that one being 55 in that range is a sweet spot. It supports gut metabolism and immune resilience. When it's elevated, insulin resistance, again, adrenal or stress related imbalance. So remember those emotions, it's not just affecting your GlycaA score, it's affecting all of these. So I always work on that emotional support because that's a big deal. So support ideas, a lot of times it's that low intake of carbs or an imbalance of not getting enough fat and fiber, those kind of things. Adaptogens can be really helpful for the isoleucine. And ashwagandha, holy basil can help with those stress. And I love somatic exercises. I use them quite frequently. I was just explaining one to a client today that was in a consult. And I have a lot of different ideas. I always try and make sure that it fits the client that's in front of me. Isoleucine helps us understand how steady your internal energy supply is. So if you're looking at these markers, you may have one that's high, one that's low, one that might be on, or if you are seeing all high, it tends to be digestion, but it also can be a marker of blood sugar concerns. That's how I have to put it, because it's not a diagnosis, it's blood sugar imbalances. And if it's all low, typically it's intake as well as digestion. So we can look at it that way. And this is one of the easiest things to improve because habits can be improved on very simply. And if it is a habit that's in the way, then that's a great way to go. So that is the digestion marker. I'm going to show you one that had some low. So if you're looking at that leucine below 50, that was all bolded. It's kind of hard to see on this screenshot. But that one was bolded. Valine being at 118 when 200 is where we need to be. Isoleucine being at 34. So these are all very low markers. And that leucine being 50 is really low. So this person has been working on parasites. That's what we've got going on right now. And that we're looking forward to seeing the results as the post results. So now I'm going to give you a little bit of hope because we've looked at these and they may be a little stressful if you've gotten your lab test done. I think this lab test is fascinating. Oh my gosh, I didn't even see that you had joined, Gina. Nice to see you, to see your name. But this can feel overwhelming when people look at this. I think that's why those advanced lab tests are really a great way to kind of narrow things down because then we know exactly what we're looking for. It's not a mystery alien that is invading our body. We're looking at that. And one of the sad things is parasites really do not show up well on any lab test because parasites can be in your digestive tract. And if you're checking poop or pee, then you might see something come through in that. But parasites can be anywhere in your body. They can be in your joints. They could be in your toe or a leg or, a hand. It's one of those kind of things. But I'm going to give you a little hope with this because I have results that I wanted to share with you. So this client had done the initial lab test with me in October of 2025. And this is actually after she had been working with me for a while. And this was when she felt comfortable getting the lab test done. She goes, I don't want to waste money on something to see where I am to start with. I want to see how good I've done. And having 42 as a score is not a bad score, especially because she's 61 years old. And we went through the different steps that I was talking about, opening up elimination pathways, removing toxins, and then working on different types of infection that were present in her body. And we went through those steps and doing the lab test again 6 months later. We could have done it sooner than that, but she had things going on with weddings and new babies and all kinds of stuff in her family. But she really worked diligently. And she is one of those people that started off with great habits in general, but there were tweaks that needed to be made. And this one was fascinating to me, but I want to point out something real quick on here. So if you look at that score where the GlycaA, her previous one was a lower score than her new one. So her earlier one was 312, showing closer to that ideal of 300. And the next one was 343, but her overall score was better because they're weighted differently. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? Why is there an infection marker? And she goes, I don't know. And so we talked about it a bit. And I said, I bet you have some little infection that's kind of hiding in the background. And when she first came to visit me and start working with me, she had had some bladder infections where she was on antibiotics frequently, and she knew it wasn't what she wanted to do. And so with that, we ended up going, okay, maybe there's an infection. And I said, so what's been going on lately? She had taken a road trip. Wasn't drinking water very much, kind of, because she didn't want us to have to stop and pee, had alcohol and treats and all kinds of stuff. And we discovered that's kind of her Achilles heel. When that goes on, then her bladder infection will flare. It's not going to be flaring all the time, but she had put those other barriers to her health by not drinking enough water, having desserts, and having wine. And yes, it was a nice, pleasurable experience for her, but she ended up getting an infection marker that was a concern. So our bodies tell us all kinds of things on a regular basis. But this, to me, was beautiful because her small HDL particle number, it was low, and now it's at that sweet spot of 19 or above. Her citrate score was high, and now she's in that good range for citrate. Valine 220, hello, beautiful. Now 97 when 110 is the leucine score, and 65 when the isoleucine score. Those are a little bit off, and there may be some more steps that she's going to do in the future, but she's got some new things going on right now, so we're holding off on a little bit of that. But I wanted to share the hope with you because she feels amazing. She started feeling amazing within the first month and a half. She's like, I can't believe those little changes made that big of a difference. So when we can identify what's going on, then we can move forward. So kind of at this point, we've unearthed the blocks that are there to your optimal wellness. We're not looking at naming a disease ever. So know that. If you want a diagnosis, or if you have a diagnosis, I really don't care if there's a diagnosis. I want to know what these scores are and how we can work towards optimizing them. I want you to be optimal. I don't want you to just survive. And if you know that you're tired, and it's not age, it's not laziness, it's not all in your head, it may be hydration. It could be hidden infections. What toxins are lurking in your environment that you're unaware of? Mitochondrial stress, and are you getting the nutrition? If we can identify what the challenges are, your body can start feeling better and having the energy. So I want to take a breath and get a sip of water. Has this been helpful? Any questions over the nutritional markers? I didn't ask that question. No questions. All right, we're going to keep going. So at this point, what do? I would encourage you, number one, to get the lab test done. And I will try and figure out some course for people in New York, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. I hate that it's not available there. It's a legislature kind of thing. It's not a lab company kind of thing. So you've got I'm glad it's been fascinating. So what you've got is you have a couple different options for next step. Number one, you can take this information and try and figure it out on your own. But I bet you probably have been trying to figure it out on your own for a while, and just knowing the markers is not necessarily going to help you get to the answers. So you can guess on protocols. I know what works, and I have an army of other practitioners that are behind me when I do have questions and I get stuck that I can ask questions of, and I'm able to help them too. So that's option one. Try and do it on your own. Option number two is doing nothing. You can close the window and go back to life and enjoy your life as you will, and that's totally fine. But I don't want you to keep pushing through and trying to gain more energy by drinking coffee or telling yourself that you just need to try harder or work on that. Ignoring the numbers doesn't make it better, and it doesn't make your body feel better. Third option is to have guided strategy, and you can stop guessing and start working from a clear strategy. And I am very clear when I talk to people about how I'm going to move them forward. Sometimes it can't be at the pace that they really want just because their body is not ready for that. But there's always information we can gather, and your body communicates constantly. I have a client right now that is very sensitive, and she has a lot of mucus within doing the parasite protocol that we've got her on right now. And I'm like, okay, what's mucus? It's your body trying to flush something out. So what else do we need to do? Do we need to do more salt to help that mucus break up? Do we need to do more vitamin C to support the immune system? Are we doing okay with adrenal stress? What's your overall emotional stress? And we're going to work through those steps together. So I think that this is where it really comes down to stop guessing and start versus testing. So if you haven't gotten your lab test done yet, please do. It's not hard to do. You can go through the program online and be able to get that taken care of. Is there anybody that needs that link? I have a feeling not, but if there's anybody that needs that link, put it in the chat so that I can give you that link. But a large part of my philosophy is that I don't want to guess. I want to test. And we can test in different ways, but we can't fix what we don't understand. And that really was profound for me when I realized I was having problems with thallium and cesium. And without doing that total tox burden test, I had no clue that was draining the energy from my adrenals. So you might get lucky and find a bullseye if you've got your guessing going on, but I don't think it's going to be very good. And generally throwing darts blindfolded does not work. So we want to not be blindfolded. We want to have a clear vision of what your body is communicating. So next question after that is, what do we do with this information? So if you've done the root cause landscape test and we know what those markers are, and if you haven't really explored the backside of the website, the membership site has a lot of explanation in there. But sometimes you need that additional testing or determination if you need additional testing. Sometimes another blood panel is necessary. Other times it could be a urine test or a stool test. So knowing what needs to be tested and coming from a point of perspective, I think that additional testing is worth the investment. Absolutely. And with that, we want to make sure that we've got all of those things into balance so that we have that clarity and listen to what your body is doing. So I work with people through a very structured program. So the next step for me optimally would be to do a one-on-one strategy conversation. So if you need to get your lab test done, this is the QR code and the link. And I can put that same link in the chat. Oh, I'm going to try to put it. So if you need this link or you want to share it with somebody, please do. QR code is right there, so you can use that. I just realized that I forgot to delete something that's in the middle of that QR code. That's so funny. So the lab test is really key. And I think we need to always be starting from that point of actually looking at numbers. So what do I do with the root cause landscape? Are we going to do some testing for infection or toxin load? What other deeper panels do we need? Sometimes with thyroid, if you're concerned about thyroid, we do a full thyroid panel. It's not a little wimpy partial one that doctors a lot of times do. I've never had a doctor do a full thyroid panel when I've given the list to a client, not one. Or do we move directly into structured program? So that's the Design to Thrive strategy call is the next best step. Got the lab test, you have your results. Now let's get our stuff together and have a consultation. And this is a one-to-one consultation with me online. It's about 50 minutes. Sometimes we talk longer, kind of like our webinar today is going a little bit longer, but the consultation regular fee is $4.95. And with the code right here, Thrive Now, all in caps, you can get that initial call for $247. If you haven't done your lab test now, I would still sign up for the consultation, just schedule it out a bit. Usually the root cause landscape, if you can get in and get the blood draw done, 3 to 7 days. Lately it's been a little bit more than 3, but 4 to 7 days later when we have the results. So you can schedule that with that in mind to get the requisition on the website. Also, if you have any questions about that, let me know, and then get your results. after you get the blood draw done, and we'll get you on for that appointment. But we're going to go through the results for your root cause landscape. We're going to go through an entire health history questionnaire. It is long and in depth. It even talks about what happened with your mom when you were in, what was your mom's habits when you were in the womb? What were your habits when you were a kid? What's health history of family? Because that tells me a lot of different things, and we can identify some different patterns that can be worked on. And there's going to be strategies within that initial call that you will have. What's our next step? Okay, what are things that we need to shoot for? And I'll give you at least 3 of targets for the next step. Is it another test, or is it something that you can do on your own? And I typically give you a few things of both. So we would walk through that together. And remember that Thrive Now as your code. It takes you to pay for it first, and then you enter the code. So just be aware it's not right off the bat that you're putting that code in. So when you decide what's going to take place with that strategy call, then I have 6-month programs that I typically work with clients. My clients don't tend to be the ones that are just a little unhealthy. We're talking the more difficult, more struggling for longer periods of time. And I really believe that that 6-month program is vital to be accountable for those 6 months and do the steps that we discuss. So sometimes you've got someone that's got a high toxin load. Sometimes it's somebody that has a lower load, and it may be some nutritional strategies like Teresa that we need to work on. And so there are 2 different programs. They're both high touch, but the one that is the higher investment, there are more supplements that are included in it. And we aren't going to get into all the details of that right now, but we're going to look at what tests need to be done, what the detox pathways are doing, and it's very personalized support. People who have gone through my program say that they love it, and they tend to keep working with me because they are on that cusp of having, when they first start working with me, some serious things going on. So bottom line, it doesn't have to be confusing. I'm on your side. I'm going to walk you through it, and it's going to be a clear path. There is a very clear path that we can see with this. So before we move on to other questions, I want to leave you with something important. Exhaustion is real, and there are reasons behind it. Your body is communicating. It's not broken. It's telling you things, and it's telling you your capacity as well as what may be going on, what organs are more challenged. And we need to understand those signals. We don't just work off of symptoms, but we look at what the lab tests show along with symptoms and habits, and we can change a lot of that and remove those roadblocks so that you can thrive, so that you are spending your life doing what you are passionate about and what God's put in your heart. So you don't have to figure this out on your own. I am here for you. And if you have any questions, I'm here to clarify and make things a little bit better. So if there are any questions, you can unmute and chat with me now. I'm going to turn off my share. So any questions that I can answer for y'all? And I'd love to know if this was helpful.
I have a question.
Yes, Kristen?
How much is the initial blood work, the root cause one?
$99.
And then you mentioned several follow-up ones if those ones showed certain high levels. How much do those ones usually go for?
They vary tremendously depending on what they are. Some of them, and some of that is on that membership site.
Yeah. Do you have a comprehensive list of all of the different tests?
Yeah, it's on the membership site.
Okay, cool.
So if you go to the link that Dr. Carey, it's DRKARI Barron.com. If you go to that, then and you sign up for the membership, in that membership site, it has the lab tests listed there. You'll see them.
Great. Well, you are a wealth of information. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you being there for support. Any other questions for me? Okay. Well, God bless y'all. I appreciate you being on the call with me today.